A big welcome to my guest today, Drew Beshku, and we're going to just dive right into this conversation because there's probably some nuggets in here that all of us can relate to, all of us can learn from and grow from. And so let's start with, well, first of all, welcome, Drew. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And I want to lay a foundation for people so they understand your why and your passion behind this work. So talk to us about that first, and then we'll dive more into, let's say, the rest of us and what we need help with.
Awesome. Yeah, of course. So I am Drew Beshku. I'm a certified life and dream builder coach. I've had about 15 years of experience in education, as well as client success management and corporate leadership. And really, through my journey, as I call it, through these pivotal lefts and rights, got hard. It got hard. I was very independent. I was skeptical of life coaching until a certain point. I hit a wall of basic complete burnout of my corporate career. I was a mother of two under two. I was married, or I am still married, happily married to my husband of 17 years. But at that time, it was, managing a bilingual, bicultural marriage. And then my dad got sick. So my dad, he had a hard time. He was diagnosed with liver disease. And it was just a roller coaster of ups and downs, and then caregiving for him. He was my daddy-o, he was my everything. And then when all of that was happening all at the same time, I was finding myself in dark waters. I had no levitation device. I was just sitting there and almost drowning in this. And I invested into a life coach, and that life coach really helped me find clarity, get through grieving my father's loss, the loss of my father. And it really helped me find my purpose and what I really am called to this earth to be here doing, which is coaching. It is empowering my, working women, working moms who have this overachieving, high achieving production, type mindset, because they just want to continue to move in that top, the career. They want to be a perfect in being a mom. They want to be a perfect wife. They want to be a perfect this. And it does take a lot of balance. It does take a lot of pausing, which I really think is important. But that's the reason, that's the why. I've been through it in some way, shape, or form. And so in order for me to support my clients in that way, that's just what I really love. And that's my passion.
Yeah.
As a coach.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Can I ask you, was it, or do you have a recollection of that moment? Because you mentioned you were skeptical of life coaching, but then you did end up getting a coach. And what shifted in you that made you go, I want help, I want support?
You know what? It was partly guilt that I had to succumb. I felt guilty to put myself first in that time because I was a caregiver. I was keeping everything together. I was managing all of the things that I had just said, and part of me felt guilty for putting myself first. And part of me felt that, I've done this all of my life. I don't need nobody. I don't need anybody to help me do anything at all because I've got to exactly where I am. And, I just said, let me just see what this is. What is this pull towards this direction? I felt it,
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people can relate with that. And maybe that's the answer to the next question, but I want to ask you what you think, because I think about this a lot for myself personally, because I'm that person. I hold everything on my shoulders. I'm an acts of service person. I love helping and supporting people to the absolute detriment of myself and my own well-being. And And I think there's a lot of you out there that are going to be raising your hands being like, yeah, if I'm real honest with myself, like, yeah, that's me too. But why do you think we do that and like suffer on the inside or take it all on until we hit that breaking point? Like, what is that?
Yeah, and to be honest, I think a lot of us don't know it's happening while it's happening until it's too late.
Sure.
Until we hit that burnout point, until like we are already in this I remember the vibrations around my body, like vibrating in this, like, oh my God, overwhelm. What am I
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be doing? Is it this thing first or this thing first? Is it, do I watch my laptop while, my kids are here? Do I watch the baby monitor? And it's just like this tug and pull at all points. But like in that vibrational state, when we are feeling overwhelmed and unaware of what to prioritize first in that thing, that's where we pause. That's where we take some breaths and we slow our bodies down so that we can get clear on, who we are, because our identity shifts, and just to find who we are again in that walk of life is just being able to pause enough, slow down, breathe through it all, so that whatever comes up first, that's the thing that we should be doing next.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, to your point, it's like we've normalized that level of operating. I talked about this in a past episode I did recently where I was talking about anxiety and where I personally had normalized a certain level of anxiety that I was just operating on, thinking like, that is just what people do.
Yeah.
That's same concept here is that, so my hope is having conversations like this, it gets us all like, it triggers something in our brains to be like, oh yeah, wait a second. Yeah, I am operating at that vibration. I do need to pause. I do need to stop. And then like this is me and Drew here giving you permission to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we all need to do that. And it's just fascinating to me. And can you talk on this for a second? Because this is something I was thinking about today, kind of about myself, but I'm sure other people are like this too, where there's probably a difference between like, sometimes life is going to have these moments where it's like, whoa, there's a lot going on. And then there's like moments of like, okay, ease and we're like cruising. So let's say we're taking a step ahead and we're being more self-aware now. How do we know the difference between, okay, this is just a temporary, like, yep, I just have to operate at this level versus like where it's maybe gone too far and now we're like have normalized it again? Do you know what I mean? Do you
Yeah.
have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that's a lot to do with balancing too, because one week you will have slower weeks. Maybe your calendar isn't as full. What is that thing that like is making you feel more at ease? What is that thing that is making you feel more overwhelmed, right? So like look at your calendar, think about how your your emotions are, how your vibrations are, how you're talking to your family. Your family shouldn't suffer. It's not a suffer. It is just like you deserve to be, happy. You deserve to love your life. I'm just getting goosebumps. It's just like, it is to me, like into the core to talk to people and help them through situations like this, because I was there. And, it is okay to put yourself first. It is okay to sit in that pause of that overwhelm and really understand what that means. Is it fear of growth? Is it you are just doing way too much? Or is it just you're doing something that is not fully aligned with who you are, who your like what your values are? So it's good to stop in those moments of peace and calm and be grateful for the things that are happening in that moment, so you have that feeling there. but it's also amazingly important to understand where that overwhelm is coming from. What is that underlining understanding of what it is?
Yeah. Okay. So plug for your coaching. I'm going to jump and assume that that's probably like a process you take people through is to help
Absolutely.
figure that out, answer those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say it like this. There's a quote that is, your thoughts become your feelings, that then become your actions, that become your results. You cannot be aware enough for you. Like, so your thoughts are part of your awareness. It's part of traumas that have happened in your past that are tethering you to this belief system of who you are as a person. So the thoughts that go into your feelings create the action that then in turn create your results. So through my program and through my coaching, we identify and uncover what that is, so that we can be more at a more expanded thought. The frequency of our energy is then in an elevated state so that we can make decisions that are going to be results of where we see ourselves.
Yeah. And I've heard the people talk about this, like the concept of coaching is kind of like the coach is holding up a mirror and like really helping you see the things that, because we all have blind spots, right? Like I'm guilty of that, like kind of back to that same concept of like taking it all on. I do that with my personal development too. I'm like,
So do
I
I.
don't need help. I got this. I'm
Yeah.
going to do the thing and and then I just burn myself out on personal development because I need that support system in place. And so then, talking about, I want to go to the thing you mentioned about like sometimes this overwhelm comes from not being in alignment. And that could be like in your job, right? It could be in your relationships. It could be like, and I'm talking like any relationship, like
With
friendships,
yourself,
like,
you have a relationship with yourself.
okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about alignment. And then, you know, because here's what I think happens is we have these aha moments of like, yeah, I'm not in alignment with this, like whatever, fill in the blank, right? Then what? Like, what do we do with that information?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the best thing that we can do is notice what we're noticing. So being aware of that, notating it down. One thing that one of my clients had to work through was negative talk that she gets from her husband. Okay. However, when she started writing down these things that she perceived as negative, in turn, they weren't actually his thoughts, but they were her thoughts, right? So there's a lot of part of relationships that if you're feeling judged, it's most partly because, you're judging yourself. So, having that grace in that moment, um, we can only work forward from where we are right now. So not giving us the pressure of like, yeah, I might not be aligned with my career. I might not be aligned with like the self-talk that I give myself on a daily basis. By the way, I call that the inner hater, and you just got to talk back to it. It's there because it is the best friend, your best friend. Honestly, it's protecting you from failure. It's protecting you from all of the things that could potentially happen in a bad way. So be grateful for that inner hater, but you are like way better than what you tell yourself. So like in those moments of clarity, track it and try to understand what it's telling you. Patterns are telling you something. If it's just one off day, you're feeling unaligned, okay? But if you dig deeper and you continuously, consistently, try to uncover what's going on, then you have a way forward because you're building your awareness.
Yeah, it's almost like we're like a researcher and like collecting data on ourselves.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah.
And so I just caught myself actually in the very question that I asked you because I was like, what do we do with that information? Like, because I'm such a doer, I want to like take immediate action. And maybe that's not always the thing. Like you have to keep gathering data. You got to like grab all of this information to then be able to make actually like an aligned action decision about where you are or what you want to do.
For sure. And there is definitely a wall there or a boundary there where, yeah, you sit in that for a consistent amount of time to figure out where that misalignment is coming from, and understanding that fear factor and that overwhelm and, all of those type negative feelings. But you don't want to sit there too long because you also want to not freak yourself out, for example. So like you're unaligned of your career, but you've been in the career for however long and you're comfortable. Well, the comfort zone will keep you there because the next step is your fear zone. So then you can get into your growth zone, which is exactly where your purpose lies.
Yeah, that's so true. And I mean, that's that thing. Like there's ego, the inner voice that keeps us from wanting to go into the fear zone. But I've actually never heard anyone say it like that. It's almost like you have to go through the fear zone to get into the growth zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
sense.
honestly, like, think about it like this, and I do it a little bit different probably, but it is in like visualizing the fear as a compass, okay? So you find the fear, you understand it there, you're uncovering and trying to understand what that fear is trying to tell you. What is it trying to tell you? You failed before, you got fired before, you are building this business now, or you're getting into your flow zone, like your love of your life. And that's scary because there's a gap there. But like, I don't know, you just have to kind of sit there in that to understand what it's telling you. And why I think that fear is a bit like a compass is that I allow it to lead me into growth, because if it's really, really scary, I'm like, okay, whatever, I'm going to hate myself later for sure, but I'm going to go ahead and do this thing because I know it's actually right, because it's the scariest thing that I've got like on my list to do. I don't know. So that's how I you dance with it. It is like this relationship with fear. It's befriending fear and really just understanding where it's coming from.
Yeah, I guess I'm like really stuck on this concept now, but I think just because I think I need it for myself. But it's that researcher mentality is like, get curious about it. What is this fear? Where is it coming from? Where is it leading me? What is it trying to keep me from? It's just, again, I think all of that is easier sometimes said than done, which is why I'm a huge cheerleader for getting help through these processes. Because, if you're sitting here listening to this and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this. Yes, and really ask yourself, like, do you want to go get help with this, though? Because don't do the thing that I said where you still then just try to take it all on yourself.
They definitely have to be ready in a way that, people listening today, people that I work with or I talk with on a daily basis, they definitely just have to be ready. And like, they have to be ready to put themselves first. They have to be willing to let go of the guilt, for working moms or working women that just have this guilt of putting themselves first and loving on themselves so that they can, be their best version of who they are. But I mean, there's just a point of where you are now, and there's a vision of where you see yourself later. That support helps you get over that bridge.
I want to touch on this because you alluded to it in the beginning, and there's, I think a misconception about what balance means, because balance, I think in my Libra brain means like equal parts, this and this all the time. And I think I've fallen into the trap of trying to achieve a level of balance that is not realistic.
Yeah.
What is balance to you?
100%. And honestly, like what came up in my mind, I want to mirror exactly what you said. I mean, it's not a pie that's cut into eighths where it's exactly the same size. And it's going to be different in different weeks, different months, different seasons. When we understand what our energy is, whether or not it is kind of more at a expansive or more constrictive type feeling, that's when we know it's out of balance, it's not aligned, it's not fulfilled. But a tool that I actually use with clients that popped into my mind is a life wheel. So there's a life assessment where you assess your areas of your life 1 through 10, and then you trying to figure out kind of where you are in that area of your life. Like, okay, health and wellness. It could be, your career. It could be your family. It could be whatever area of your life that is, spirituality, whatever comes out in that. It takes that life assessment kind of rating and it puts it into like a pie chart. Like it's a circle, like a pie, and you basically label the different areas, the different categories of your life, because those are defined differently per person. And you determine how much of that, however many hours we have in a week, right? How do you want that broken down? Do you want to work 40 hours? You have to sleep 8 hours a night. You put that into more of a percentage of what prioritizes, like what comes to the top of that list for you. And then you have to be amiable, a way to be flexible with that percentage on a weekly, monthly, seasonally kind of change. If you're feeling something is out of whack, just do a little bit more of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And actually, that's a great tracker because I think that's a thing for me where I always think I always get stuck on work-life balance, but what is life, right? Like, is that making sure I've done my dentist appointment or, silly things that we'll just put off, right? And so for visual people, I imagine that's like very helpful to just be able to look at it that way. And then, also to your point, knowing that like for me, sometimes I'm really busy. Like that's me right now. I'm busy, but I'm also in an energized flow with doing it. But I also know myself and I have to be careful and mindful and check in with myself of like, okay, but how long did that go for and do I need a break? Right.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I think that just kind of comes back to the whole like awareness, mindfulness piece of it. And really, I think that's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, self-care, I feel like has kind of come into this, hey, you got to go and get your nails done, and you got to go and do your eyebrows, or, whatever that self-love is. Yes, that should be done. Spa day is amazing. I usually do it, every week or every 2 weeks or so that I get that like love onto me. But it is more so being mindful, being able to pause and give yourself grace in the moments, like take a week off, not week, but like maybe it's not that like back to back to back meeting days every single day for an entire week. If you feel exhausted from that, the next week, chill out a little bit. You did a whole bunch of work last week that's moving forward on its own. You don't necessarily really need to do any more with that until your next call or, whatever that looks like. But you do need to give yourself some space. People do it with yoga, meditation, breathing exercises. Maybe it's none of those because it's not a check marked like list. You don't need to do things. It is just loving on yourself so much that you want to feel good. And however you feel good, like I've adopted in 2020 to just do dance parties all the time.
Yes.
And I just put like really loud music on and just like dance like, like nobody's watching, but my whole family does and they get involved too. So, but it gets you just in this happy state. Yeah. Listening to music, calming yourself, laying down, clean. Yes. A 15-minute chunk of this on a daily basis, just of clean rest, whatever that means for you, reading a book, smelling a candle or incense. I mean, eating, eating is pretty important. I know we all forget how to eat lunch and drink water and all the essentials. The essentials need to be first in your life.
That's so true. I mean, that's kind of one of my go-tos is like when life gets a little chaotic, I'm like, back to basics. Am I feeding myself good, nutritious things? Am I going to bed and am I drinking water? Like, at least I have that going on, that I'm supporting my literal physical well-being.
Yeah.
Exercise also.
Yeah, honestly, my kids, I feel like just being able to like watch them have meltdowns, it's usually because not a meltdown like screaming and stuff, but basically, yeah, they're crying and that kind of thing. And um yeah, I just sit in that moment and I'm like, okay, well, they're either hungry, tired, or they want water. Hey, a shower is really nice sometimes. If you hate everybody, I've heard, if it seems like you hate everybody, just go and take a shower.
I love that.
Isn't that hilarious? It's really true, actually, honestly. You just need that calm for a moment.
I believe that. Like, I have like actually said that, like, I need to just wash off this day before, where I'm just like, I just need to wash off the day and start fresh. And then I do feel better after shower. So that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've given you all a lot of nuggets here. We'll probably have to maybe do a part 2 of this, but I want to know from you, Drew, what would you like to leave people with, to the woman listening who has probably been like, yes, I'm overwhelmed, or yes, I feel unfulfilled, or whatever. There's a lot of ways you probably connected with this episode. What's your parting words of wisdom or message for that woman?
Yeah, I think it's just having grace and being okay, like you stepping away for 15 minutes to breathe so you don't like scream at your children or whatever that looks like, maybe your husband, or like taking that 15 minutes to just sit in stillness. There's a book called The Power Pause. It's just really pausing in that moment. And it's okay. Nothing will fall down. There is a list. Make a list of all the things that you have, like your to-do list items. It's brain dumping. I do it like I say two times at least a week, 2 or 3 times a week, where I just like vomit all the things out on a piece of paper, exactly, what's in my mind. All my to-do lists, my groceries, all of that. What can be delegated? What's invisible that you don't realize is there, that's really pulling a lot of your energy? What can be put off? What needs to be done now? That's prioritizing. And like being able to brain dump and really getting that out and onto a calendar or into a system, you don't no longer have to like just think about it over and over and over. Hey, I got to remember to do that. I got to remember to do that. Well, I don't have to actually remember to do that because it's on my calendar and I no longer really have to think about it. So giving yourself grace, knowing that, I don't know, that you no longer have to hold up everything because you do have a support system in some way, shape, or form, whether that's me or whether that's, a friend or family member or spouse or whoever that is, leaning in on that, giving yourself the grace and the pause, and being okay. It is okay to do that.
Yeah. Thank you for this. I personally needed these reminders. I needed this conversation today. And so thank you. And real quick before we go, how do people connect with you, follow you, all the things?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm Drew Beshku. Beshku is Beshku. And, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I've got my website is theblissfullifecoaching.com. And that's all of the information that you can, if you need to know more information about me.
And I will have things linked in the show notes as well for all of you. Thank you for being here. And thank you, Drew, for an amazing conversation. And to all of you, have a wonderful rest of your day and to more amazing balance and growth in our lives. Hey, before you go, make sure you've subscribed to the podcast wherever you're getting it and leave a comment and let me know that you were here. I really appreciate that. If this resonated with you, share it because it will probably help someone else. And the more people we can reach, the better. So thanks again for being here and I'll see you next time.